Good morning, students. Welcome back to history class. Chapter 1, The Birth of Modern India. Last class we have discussed about the major changes, geographical changes and political changes and Indian nationalism. Today we are going to study about economic changes. Let us see the economic changes. The most striking economic change during the British period came in the land revenue system. During the British rule, British officials went around surveying the countryside and fixing the land revenue. Land revenue was the most important source of income for the government, though the land revenue arrangements made by the British differed in different parts of the country. Land revenue was fixed at very high rates. This led to extreme hardship. So, frequent famines, peasants, migrants, and rebellions across the Indian subcontinent. Let us explain this paragraph. So, during the British period, came in the land revenue system. During the British period, only land revenue system came. So during the British rule, what British officials, so British officials here means these company officials only. Okay, British East India Company official. They went around surveying the countryside and fixing the land revenue. How they are fixing the land revenue? So they have to take the measure. Surveying means measurement. Okay, they have to take the measurement how much land with you. According to the measurement, you have to pay the money. You have to pay the revenue. So according to the survey method, they have to measure and fixing the land revenue. So land revenue was the main source of income of the British. Though the land revenue arrangements made by the British in different parts of the country. So in different parts of the country, everywhere these British, the land revenue arrangements made by the British differed in different parts of the country. So not everywhere in the country, everywhere it is not same. Okay, it is different method. So land revenue was fixed at very high rates. So not only, so the once they are measuring means they are fixing the amount also very high. This led to extreme hardship. It is very difficult to pay the revenue for the farmers. So frequent famines. Okay, frequent famines, then peasants migration and rebellions. So what happened? So due to that, land revenue fixed very high. So due to the high rate of land revenue, people, farmers can't pay the land revenue. Because, what is the reason? Because frequent famines. If the crops failed due to the natural calamities as you know very well, floods, famine and droughts. So earlier time at that time the king reduced the land revenue. At least they will reduce the land revenue, some concession they will give. Otherwise, sometimes totally wrote it off. Wrote it off means totally they told no need to pay. Okay, so but during the British period, land revenue is very very necessary, very important for the income of the Britishers. So they are not given there any reduction or abolition the land revenue. Because if the crops during the natural calamities such as flood, famine, whatever is there, you have to pay the money to the British government. Okay. So the coming of the British, however, changed the situation. So revenue began to be collected by the agents of the company. It was fixed and had to be paid in cash. So after coming of the British, however, changed the situation. Before that, earlier time, the king during the famine, if the crops failed due to the natural calamities such as flood, famine, and drought, the king reduced the land revenue or sometimes totally wrote it off. But the coming of the British, however, changed the situation. Revenue began to collected by the agents of the company. It was fixed and had to be paid in cash. No concession was given during years when crops failed. So no concession was given even during years when crops failed. Is it clear? Next paragraph. During the colonial period, the pre-existing patterns of trade also underwent many changes. When British traders came to India, they bought spices, calicos, and fine cotton cloth and sold them in England. These were usually paid for bullion or silver. Later, many peasants were forced to cultivate opium, which the British sent to China in lieu of tea. So, I will explain this paragraph. Here, what is the meaning of pre-existing patterns of trade? What is the meaning of pre-existing patterns of trade? Pre-existing patterns of trade underwent many changes. So, what is the meaning of pre-existing patterns of trade? Trade is the exchange of goods and services between countries. Trade, trade. What is trade? Trade is the exchange of goods and services between countries. Goods bought into a country are called imports, and those sold to another country are called exports. Students, you know very well, goods bought into a country are called imports, and those sold to another country are called exports. So when British traders came to India, first they entered to India as a traders. They bought spices, calicos, and fine cotton clothes. So whatever we have spices. Indian spices is very famous in England. Even cotton, we have cotton. Cotton protection of cotton. India is number one country. Okay, so this one, British traders purchased spices and fine cotton cloths and sold them in England. And they sold them in England. They sold in England. They were usually paid for bullion or silver. So at that time, when they are purchasing, for that purchase, they have to pay the money. Actually, they were usually paid for in bullion or silver. Here, bullion, what is the mean? Bullion means bars of gold or silver. At that time, no rupee note or no coins, nothing. So only bullion means what is that? Bars of gold. Gold, you can see in the movie also. Gold bar means this much bar, gold bar. Okay, chocolate bar is there, na? Like that, gold bars or silver also they used to pay. Later, many peasants were forced to cultivate opium, which is the British sent to China in lieu of tea. So later, so now British came to India. So they are forcing the farmers, peasants. Many farmers were forced to cultivate it because cultivation nuts, whatever we have, whatever they want, farmers want means whatever they want means according to the soil, that area, regions. So they have to produce the things. But later, many farmers were forced to cultivate opium, which is the British sent to China in lieu of tea. Here, in lieu, what is that in lieu means? Instead of tea. So the Britishers forcing the farmers, you have to cultivate in your land opium only. So they want to send the British sent to China. So instead of tea, they have to send to China for opium. So they have to export. They have to export this opium to China. That is why they are, because now India was under the control of British. So whatever this imperialist country told, we have to follow. Okay, is it clear? Next paragraph. When India became a full-fledged colony, she exported raw materials like jute and cotton to England, which fed British factories in Scotland and Manchester. These finished goods were then sold back to India at much higher prices than those which raw materials were bought from India. Overall trade, which was in favor of India at the beginning of the period, so became very unfavorable for the country. Let us explain. Now almost India became a full-fledged colony of Britishers. Okay, so India exported raw materials. We have the raw material, lot of raw materials with us, some like jute and cotton. to England, which were dead. So, because India exported raw materials like jute and cotton to England, British factories were in Scotland and Manchester. So, they have the raw. Yesterday we have discussed about this one. They have the factories, but they don't have the raw materials. We have the raw materials, but we don't have the factories. So what they are doing, they are these British England people, they have taken the raw material from colonial colony. They have taken the raw material from colony India and sent it to their own country, and they have to finished goods, and again they have to sold back to India at much higher prices. So when they are purchasing raw material from India, it's a very cheaper rate only. Okay, but they have to finish their product and again sold back to India in higher prices only. So who is the beneficiary here? Britishers. Okay, so they are taking the raw material from lower price with the help of these factories. With the help of these factories, that raw material became the finished product. Then again they sold back to India in the higher prices. So they are taking our raw materials, taking the raw material from us, and then again they have to sold back to India in higher prices. So overall trade which was in favor of India at the beginning of the period became very unfavorable for the country. So almost all the farmers they are facing the loss only. Okay. So who is the beneficiary of here? British people only. Okay, British people, because yesterday we have discussed in the colonization. The fundamental goal of the imperialist country is to exploit the economy of its colony and derive the maximum benefit out of it. So the fundamental goal, what is the imperialist? Here imperialist country Britain, colony country India. Okay. So the fundamental goal of the imperialist country is to exploit the economy of its colony. So they are exploiting our economy, Indian economy, and derive the whatever maximum benefit, they derive maximum the benefit out of it. Colonization leads to, so automatically this leads to the poverty in the colony and brings prosperity for the imperialist country, because they have the industry only, they have where domestic industry grow on the raw material and resources drained out of the colony. Colonization leads to poverty in the colony and brings prosperity for the imperialist country where domestic industry grow on the raw materials and resources drained out of the colony. Is it clear? Another striking change was the destruction of traditional industries such as weaving, pottery, iron melting, brass works, etc. They were destroyed since they often poses a challenge to British trade and manufacturing. This phenomena came to be known as deindustrialization. Gradually, the industrialization of India began in the later half of the 19th century, following a slow of efforts made by the likes of GRD, Tata, and others. So, here first you have to understand what is deindustrialization. What is mean by deindustrialization? Deindustrialization means a general reduction in the industrial capacity and came into prevalence in India with the destruction of the handicrafts industry by external competition from British manufactured products during the 19th century. So, what is deindustrialization means? A general reduction in the industrial capacity and came into prevalence in India with the destruction of the handicrafts industry by external competition from British manufactured product during the 19th century. So another striking change was destruction of traditional industry, you know very well, weaving, pottery, iron melting, and these are all traditional. So Traditional wise, they used to industries. They were destroyed since often poses a challenge to British trade. So they cannot challenge to British trade and manufacturing because with the help of technology, with the help of new technology, and with the help of machines, they are doing they are producing their own product. They are making the designs all this. To compare this one, so they were destroyed since they possessed a challenge. They can't challenge to British trade and manufacturing. Who? These traditional industries. This phenomena came to be known as the deindustrialization. Gradually, the industrialization of India began in the later half of the 19th century. So later, for in our country, industrialization. So before that, only hand hand traditional industries only means weaving. Weaving means they are not using any machines. All this weaving with hands only. Then pottery also. Then iron melting, brass work, everything with the hands only. Nicely designs they used to make. Okay, so this phenomena came to be known as the deindustrialization. Gradually, the industrialization of India began in the later half of the 19th century. So, in our country, industrialization began in the later half of the 19th century, following a slow of efforts by the like GRD, Tata, and others. Industrialization first came. Who are all? GRD, Tata, and others. Is it clear? Cultural changes. Students, we have already seen in previous classes, especially with reference to the Mughals, how the new sets of people bring in their cultural practices which interact with the existing cultural practices. So, this often results in a totally new culture. When they are interacting with the existing cultural practice, so with this one results in a totally new culture. This change also witnessed during the colonial period in many aspects of Indian culture. Art, architecture, language, literature, and in fact, even the way of Indians dressed changed considerably during this period. In the field of architecture, the city of New Delhi, especially what is known as Latins Delhi, is a good example of colonial architecture, which was combination of Indian and European styles. So similarly, in the area of art, the Bengal school is a good example. So architecture, good examples. Latins Delhi is a good example of colonial architecture. If similarly, in the area of art, the Bengal school is a good example, where Indian themes were expressed through Western styles. Indian themes were expressed through Western styles. In the area of literature, Indian writings in English, which is now very popular around the world, began during this period. So before that, we don't know how to write in English. Now in the area of our literature, Indian writings in English, which is now very popular around the world, began during this period. Is it clear, students? That's all for today class. I hope you all understood. We will meet in the next class. Till then, revise the chapter taught. Thank you. Have a nice day.